thanks to Ketan for a good introduction about me and Pranay, who is taking care about the next topic that we are going to. This one is make your code shine with the static code analysis using Jetpack Compose with some libs, and Sonarqube, that is one of the good tools that we are exploring today. Okay. Whatever the learnings or to-do list that you are going to explore today, you can use that with sharing on Twitter and LinkedIn with important hashtags that you can refer with this. So few important points that we are going to explore today. One by one, we just listed out in the agenda like what we are going to read one by one. That is, first is the manual code review. Like for any code processes to delivered by the QA or by the UA, you need to go one round pre-tested with that QA code review environment, right? So there are multiple ways, but the basic that most of we approach with that manual code review. Just want to know like who is the person who is doing the code review in your project? Good numbers, quite good. Okay, so you know that some kind of headaches that you are facing while reviewing your code, maybe for your own code or maybe by the peer reviews, right? So that we will understand in the further. Moving further, like what would be the static code analysis? I will just explore the higher layer. Pranay will go in deep side with the static code analysis, and you can point like what would be the feature of that and why static code analysis is required in your project before development or maybe before the deployment at that part. So you need to take care for that as well, and how that works, like what would be the prerequisites that you required for that static code analysis and what you need to configure for that. We will explore the same thing, static code analysis, as I mentioned in Jetpack Compose. We will explore in the Kotlin with that point, and same as time of Flutter one, right? So we will configure like the same process with that multiple tech stack, and how you can automate this process using the Sonarqube. So Sonarqube is playing the important role all about these processes, and you can easily deploy these changes without any hassle-free process. So we will talk about in these all topics in detail further. So before that, moving on the core topic, that should be like a dream of every developer, like I will write a clean code, right? Is there anyone who is going to, that dream does not have? No. Because that is just dream, because even any expert that are going to write code, there is chance of maybe bug, vulnerabilities or security patches, right? So there is no expert in terms of learning perspective. Whatever the code there are you are writing, there is a chance of you are putting some leakages. So just writing like what are the core principles that you can understand with that. Like first one is reliable, right? So whatever the code that you are going to write in your code, in your project, that should be reliable with your code structure, your architecture, the basic principle that you are following. And if you are not put it that right way, that will be headache for your peer developers or maybe the next coming person who is writing your code further. At the same time, that should be the secure way, right? It is not like whatever the code that you are going to write, that should be open for all. Open source is separate thing, but the code that you are going to write, that should be in secure way. Secure way in just a way like, let's say if you are using the API, that should be secure with that data structure in that encryption and decryption with that response in request data, right? So that is a one point. You can add multiple points in security way, like whatever the data that you are storing in your mobile in the preferences storage. So recently there is a local storage in Android. There is encrypted set preferences you are using. Hope so most of that you are switched in that with that version. Earlier it was the set preferences, but now there is a way where with it including Jetpack Compose with Android X, you can explore with an encrypted set preferences, right? So at the same time, whatever the code that you are going to write, that should be easily maintainable, right? So is it not like the piece of code that you are writing that is just only understood by you? So that should be easily understood by other as well. And how you are going to maintain. Maintain it is not just like the folder structure is that you have maintained is in good stuff, the naming that you have maintained, but it means like whatever the code that you have mentioned with a list of multiple modules or the function that you have used, that should be some, sorry, so that should be in a type of easy way maintainable, and you can easily hand over to other developer then in case if that is going to more scalable product, because in each and every project that will start with maybe single module or 2 or 3 modules, but over the period, over the decade, that will be, product will be enhanced and enhanced in each and every cases. So that you need to take care in with that respect as well. And the last, that should be a pure modular based code. So there is a chance, as I mentioned, whatever the things that you are writing, that should be easily plug and play and easily out of that removable code. That should be a low coupling code, whatever that you are writing. It is not like, sir, मैंने ये code लिखा है that takes 3 days for writing a new features, but if you want to remove that I need 6 days. So this is not your case, right? So this should be a pure modulable and easily integratable in your existing project. So this is the process, like how we understand about the manual code review, right? So understanding 3 or 4 people doing the code review as we figure out, and each and everyone has their own practices, right? So understand like what is the manual code review. So let's say a developer has done some code changes and passing PR request to that lead or maybe some senior developer. So they will apply their logics, they will apply their best practices, like is that good or not, what that leakages have made, right? And they will try to identify like what are the mistake in that instead of the feature they have implemented, right? So these are the own zone of everyone, like they are figuring with their best practices. And I think there are 2 different ways that people doing the code review. One is a code review by that someone lead. Recently this meme was told about in many other contexts. And if you are running with small team, maybe single person, in that context you are reviewing your own code. मैं राजा, मैं गुलाम, ऐसा ही चीज़, right? So again, this is good practice. I have done the right choice, right? So is there any cons for the manual code review? Any of the person who has already doing this process, you can highlight that. Anyone? Yes. Correct. So this is similar, like whatever the things that your eyes will catch up in that code, rather that is mistake or not, because there is not some practices along with some automation process, right? So there is no chance like even the peer or lead can do some mistake to identify that bugs in existing code. So what would be that process? So answer is kind of that peer review is also good, but some case that should be some generic process with some best practices in which that counts will be decrease mode, not in the same state. Can I avoid my code review in any case? No. My answer is also no, but asking this time pass. Okay. So is there any tools that we can avoid by this process? Yes, we have multiple tools, but we are going to explore static code analysis. So I will invite Pranay to explain about that static code analysis, and he will guide about how he can go with that Jetpack Compose and integration.
Thank you. Mic check, mic check. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Chintan, for the all insight and the getting started our talk. So in this section, I will be explain how we can implement the different library that will use like static code analysis thing, and how we can validate our Jetpack Compose code that will help us to create the consistent, or we can say the reliable code. So yeah. So first thing first, sorry. Okay, what is static code analysis? So basically it is nothing but the thing that we are validating our code before, we execute our program, or we can say we can identify the issue or warning before executing our program, right? The second thing, sorry. Okay, the second thing, we all see this kind of warning in our, editor, right? Or it is saying it is Android Studio, or we can say it is Visual Code. So it is nothing but kind of lint validation that generally we suggest that we can resolve this kind of warning, and we can good to go with our code, right? So another question, why exactly the static code analysis is required, right? So there are many things. The first thing, for write a bug-free code. Yeah, you might be thinking, Pranay, how we can write the bug-free software, or we can say the. So context is like we realize that something that we done and without static code analysis, and then after realize that if we implement that and then we can avoid this kind of issue if we implemented the static code analysis, right? So another thing, the common code practice. As Chintan explained that there are multiple developers is working in the same project or same screen, or we can say. So we can define the common rules that we can define and apply in our code, that our code looks like the consistent and the reliable. Another, in a better resource utilization context, I would say, as the first section said, the bug is reported, right? So if after that we realize that if we implement the static code analysis, so that can be avoided by the static code analysis. So in that way we can utilize that time of the bug resolving in the another feature development, or we can say in another in the project time, right? Okay, so how many of you are using the Jetpack Compose? I mean, most of might be, and in the production we can say. And how many of you are aware about the DTKT and Kotlin? Okay, great. So in this next section, I will be do the demo for the Kotlin, for the one of the plugin that I have implemented in one of my open source project. That we will explain how that works. Okay, so now section we will see the demo. Before demo, I will explain how I have configured the different tools in my Jetpack Compose project that will help us to create my code as a consistent, and validate my code with the set of rules. Okay, so first library or tools we are going to integrate in our project is a Twitter Jetpack Compose rules. So as you already said that we are aware about the Kotlin. So it is nothing but the wrapper over the Kotlin that basically designed for the Jetpack Compose. So in that case we validate our code using the Jetpack Compose rule, like that can be avoided, or we can say that might be missed by any developer. And that we do like code review manually, that we can, before going to the pull request, that we can avoid in our code base. As I explained, there are advantage to use the Twitter Jetpack Compose rules. Like it is a set of rules that define, and if we all know Jetpack Compose have the different code practices or the things that we have to follow, like recomposition thing, parameter thing, modifier thing, etc. So the kind of rules that we have defined in the Twitter Jetpack Compose rules that we are going to use. And the second two point is nothing but for the specially thing that we can avoid before the code review or PR review. We can avoid in our we can validate our code and avoid that issue. The another plugin that I am going to use is Kotlin or Gradle plugin. Any of you know about this? Okay, no worry. So basically, it is nothing but is Gradle plugin that we are going to use, and using the Kotlin Gradle plugin, we are going to use the Twitter Compose rules in our project. Okay, so as I mentioned that Twitter Compose rule I will use using the Kotlin or Gradle plugin. Don't worry if you are not getting currently. I will explain all the things in the demo, so it will be more clear to you. It is easy to set up just writing the 3-4 line, and it is good to go. It is as many of our attendees are aware about the Kotlin. So it is with the Kotlin Gradle plugin, the Twitter Compose rules is faster to validate our code. Okay, so it is the first step. In the build.gradle, we have to add the Kotlin or Gradle dependency first. And if you have the multiple module in your project, so in that case, we have to use the sub-project module, right? And then second step, the Twitter Compose rule. You can see the top gray out section, right? It is already there for Kotlin, and the build script dependency that we have to use in the case of the Twitter Compose lint rules. So in these two steps, when you integrate in your project and see in your IDE, you can have a two Gradle task available. First is for the format Kotlin. It do nothing but when you writing the different composable, or we can say different project coding files. So in that way, if you run that, it will format your code using the Kotlin engine and look like it auto format the code and it warn you if it is not possible. The second is very important. It will give the when you run the lint Kotlin task, it will give you the error, and if it is not match with our rules, then it will show the error. So yeah, basically till now you will be thinking Chintan AI is going with without demo. So let's see some demo in the project. Yeah, you can see that the slide which having the Kotlin plugin is here. So I have added this here, and that Twitter Compose rules that I have added in the dependency class path, right? And the sub project part, as I am having the this app is already open source. It is a clone of the Zero the Kite app. So it is already there. If you want to explore, you can check there. Okay, so as I mentioned, there are two tasks. Let me see it here. So we have to run the Gradle W lint Kotlin, right? So let's run this code. Just I am go to the terminal. We have already run that, so I will use that. Okay, so currently I have updated the code which doesn't satisfy with the rules. So when I run this command, it will see, let's see what is happening. It failed the build. So meanwhile building, so it is a kind of thing that we can implement and avoid the code duplication, or we can say code validation before going to the PR review. So it will save our time, developer time, as well as the company time, or we can save our code reviewer time. Okay, so let's see what is happening. So as we have integrated the Twitter Compose rules, it is showing that the one of rule, the parameter order check, right? So might be it is the common thing that we have implemented, like generally when you implement any composable, there generally the modifier should be the first temporary common parameter. So that rules is I have defined here, so it is showing the error if it is not satisfied, right? Yeah, so the second step after this, so we have done the manual process, right? So do you think like why I have to run the every time the lint Kotlin command and validate my code, right? So basically when we see the actually we have to implement the automation process, right? So yeah, for this I have a question: how many of have implemented this shell script in your project? For any purpose, not single. Okay, great. Yeah, so it is nothing but I have written the shell script that will saying that if the Gradle lint Kotlin task is failing, in that case it just print the message, format our code and exit the process. Which process? So basically we will use the git hook. How many of you know about the git hook? Great. So you might be understand. So just forgot below code. It is nothing but it is Gradle task. We just I have written this script in a git hooks folder that will go into copy in our project directory of the git hook. Right? Okay, let's I will see the demo again. Okay, yeah, the code did this, okay, so I have written the echo message and that shell script that is going to be installed via the Gradle block, which is I have displayed here. In that case, we just have to run the this command. So it does nothing, but it will copy the pre-commit Git hook into our Git directory of the project. So what is basically do, right? So now see the magic. So you can see when I am trying to commit this code, right? You can see in the Git console thing. So that shell script is running, right? You can see that message running Kotlin Jetpack, and it will. Sorry, it is Windows PC, so it is taking too much time. Sorry for due to the unavoidable condition. Due to the unavoidable condition. So yeah, just see how it is failing the process, right? So in this way we can use this kind of library to Twitter Compose rule and the Kotlin Gradle plugin to validate our code. So basically you can write your own code also. On your rules that going to use for your project. So the major advantage of this is like you can validate your code before going to the peer review. So in that way we can utilize our time as well as the company time, or as well as the peer review time, right? As we done the demo. So you think like this, different three topics are covered in this section, right? As like I said, it is save the time and that all. So any other option? Yeah, so in the next section, we will go through I will back to the Chintan. It will explain how using the Sonarqube, we can automate that all process.
Right? Thank you. Thank you, Pranay. Okay, so far we understand like what is static code analysis. It means some best practices that we have already settled at the code level only before any deployment, or maybe for the QA or releasing for the PR request, right? So set of rules that we already understand to writing the code, and with that context we should practice like that same mistake we are not following at the same time while you are doing the coding, right? So now we are moving further. The next topic, like the same process you can do with the Sonarqube automation with Flutter and Android as well. So what is Sonarqube? Anyone have implemented Sonarqube in your project? Number of? Okay, billions of, okay. So Sonarqube is nothing, is a same tool doing the static analysis in your project, which is self-managed and doing the automatic code review process, which do the systematically helps to release your builds. Okay, what they do? So basically they will identify bugs, vulnerabilities, security patches, duplication of code, and multiple other features that you can explore further in slides. Why we should utilize that? Like what if you are not going to use, but the important is like if you integrating in your project that will do continuous inspection in your code, rather you are sleeping at your office hours or maybe doing some other check-ins in Instagram. Okay, major advantage of Sonar is why should use Sonar? They support 30 plus different languages. Rather you are working for Flutter, Android, Java, C++ or any other. Even if you are the web developer, that would be high chances that you can integrate in your project. That will be helpful, and that will reduce the QA work. Okay, bigger advantage like that helps to deploy with that CI/CD pipeline as well. There are multiple editions. Majorly as a cheaper developer, we are using the community edition. We are not going for the buy version. But in case if you want to do with that Microsoft Azure and other facility, that in case you need to do with that developer edition, in case for that you need to buy a special version. How you will identify your code health is good enough to release for the PR request, or maybe you can deploy in the production. Okay, so Sonarqube will give the certificate like your code is okay. That is a green signal, and you can deploy further in movement. So that ensure like your code quality mostly matching with that best practices with some standard protocols that have settled for that checkpoints, and that will give in pass state. So these are the core features along with many other features like number of bugs that you can identify in your project. There are chances like you are not only superhero developer who working on that project. There are other developers who is also creating bugs and fixing with some additional hours. So you can assign that bugs to other developer as well. You can invite multiple developers to allocate that bugs to resolve them. You can easily identify like which bugs is currently active, and after solving that bug you can move into the inactive state. It is okay if you can directly move in inactive point. Okay, checklist rules, that is again kind of a list of rules that is provided by Sonarqube. As Pranay has mentioned, some set of libraries that is given by some predefined rules. So Sonar gives, let's say for the Java, some code smells rules you can consider as a 250 different static checklist is provided by the Sonar. For the same way, for the Flutter, there is a 250 different static checklist available. And are multiple points where you can identify like what are the core vulnerabilities point you can figure out at that point. So these are the multiple features. At the same time, Sonarqube give some user interface which can give a dashboard interface where you can identify what are the bugs, what are the vulnerabilities, number of code smell, number of files in your project, and how you can track that in detail, right? So that is a beautiful interface which give more insight of your code health. So what if I am after appealing this much of why symptoms you should use the Sonar, and to bhi તમે નથી માનતા કે મારે ચલો use નથી કરવું. So there is obvious thing, there is no other point, you will get multiple bugs. Okay, so Sonar will helps in different stages. So two different identification we can figure out here. There are two different stages. One is a Sonar lint. It means at the time of development in your ID, you can figure out what are the number of problems that you are getting in your project. So Sonar lint will help in your ID itself. And other point is like whatever the findings that figure out from the Sonarqube, that will be identified at the time of PR request. So if you write some set of script for like even if that Sonar lint certain counts are not with that checklist, that PR request should not be request done from your system, right? So that will be helpful like until you are fixing that resolve you are fixing and resolve that bugs, then and then you can go for that PR request. So this is a blue chart, like you can easily identify like whatever the requirements you are getting from your manager or maybe the customer. You are drafting some document, you are writing some code. After code, at the same time you are able to identify some problems in your ID itself using Sonar lint. And the same time, at the time of pushing, Sonar will check that build process, do some Sonar scanning process, and they will identify, let's say some checklist has been accomplished or not based on some Sonar rules. If that is not, then it will move in the fail state, and fail state it means you have to fix them all. Right? So there are two different states, Sonarqube with the PR request and by default ID is a Sonar lint. So we can say ये आपके साथ हमेशा रहने वाला है, he will not move in space. So as I mentioned, you can identify your code with two different states. If your code is not enough with your code health, like you have billions of bugs in your project, you can easily get in red signal, that will be in the fail state. But if you are lucky one, you can move in your pass state. Lucky in terms of if you know some basic rules by the Sonar, you can easily identify some set of rules available on Sonar list itself, Sonar dashboard. So there is no chance like you can avoid that mistake repeatedly. Even at the time of ID, while you run that prod, there is a tab of problems. You can figure out that. We will check in the demo, so don't miss out anything. Understanding further like what type of bugs that we are getting in project. That is not kind of bugs. કોઈ એમ કે ભાઈ મને bug આવ્યું છે, it is not kind of simple bugs. So we can figure out bugs is pure bugs. Maybe that is a vulnerabilities. It is kind of some next level of point that you need to critical level, you need to check that. And some is kind of code smell. It means your code practice is not good. You are not good enough to write standard practices code. Let's say variable name રાખ્યું હોય, my name. But my name માં પછી તમે ગમે તે પાસ કરી શકો, right? So that kind of practices that you need to follow. So we can figure out like what is bug. Bug, it means like that is pure bug coding mistake that you have done in your code. Vulnerabilities, it means something that by intruder they can hack your data by with some passing dummy argument. Intruder in our case will be QA, right? So QA will pass some dummy data and that will accept bug with some, let's say data is not coming proper with business logics, right? So there are chances like that will be handling that point of view. And vulnerabilities, you can also say like type of HTTP requirements that you are not following in your code with HTTPS or HTTP protocol. Let's say in Android 10, if you are not using with clear traffic that condition, right? So that will be identified, that will be one of that vulnerabilities that you need to address as soon as possible. Okay? And code smell is kind of there are 10,000 line of code, but only 100 is working, rest of commented mode. So this is you need to take care, like मुझे जितना बोला है मैं उतना ही करूँगा, इसका मुझे पता नहीं. So Sonarqube is not just identify the bugs, that will also helps to like how you can fix it. So at the same time, if you just open a dashboard of the Sonarqube, they will list out number of bugs count by them clicking off different categories that we have already checked out. They will give some suggestion on specific line, like on this line point there is something issue which you need to take care. So by this by just picking these notes, you can easily identify like what you could be done over here. And if better, if you have already installed a plugin SonarLint in your IDE, maybe a VS Code or Android Studio, whatever that you are using, they easily help out like what could be easy suggestion to fix this problem. So you just need to understand like the blue linings, the blue warnings that you are getting in your IDE, that should be just single click to resolve that bug. So along with multiple issues, type of issues, there is a severity like how you can address. You should address or not. ભલે પડ્યું next વાળો આવશે એ કરશે, આપણે શું છે. So the first topmost is kind of we categorize into 1 to 5th. 1, it means that is a highly crackable point which you need to address ASAP. It means that is a blocker we consider. On point number 5th, we can consider as a info. Info is nothing but just kind of some information about maybe that will create maybe blocker, maybe critical, or maybe otherness. Let's understand one by one like that understandability. So blocker is kind of which is a pure bug, and there is a highly chances which will create which will impact on behavior of application that will be very rude for you, right? So we can consider as a example, let's say memory leak. So memory leak is one of the point. Let's say if you have created multiple array classes and you are not going to decompose in maybe on dispose function in Flutter or maybe in the activity lifecycle in Android. So in that case, the garbage collection will be collecting the more data in the cache, and that will be not auto destroy if you are not handling properly. Even if you are not handling proper data structure as well. So these are the things that you can consider while Sonar is highlighting in category of blocker, and that should be addressed as soon as possible. Critical is kind of again there is a kind of probability of impacting on behavior of the application, but there is some low chances where there are chances are very low, and also there is a impacting on security flow if you are not following that let's say encryption of data which you are using for that API, and you are just using raw data, login password માં તમે મોકલીને send કરી દો, right? So these are type of issue Sonar will easily identify in the criticalness, and while the dashboard will refresh, your core target to understand about the blocker and critical at the very high point, you need to address that as soon as possible. So taking example like empty cache block and maybe the SQL injection that you are trying to implement in improper way. Measure is kind of ये उधर का भी नहीं, ये इधर का भी नहीं, वो बीच में रहेगा. So that is kind of quality which will impacting producting developer productivity. So you need to take care like whatever the function that you are writing, that should be some meaningful, right? So there are 3 or 4 functions that you have written, but there is no meaning, right? So you need to take care like each and every member, each and every class, or the files that you are going to write in your architecture based on your the standard practices, that should be properly addressed and properly handled by your business logics and your code practices. So let's say uncovered piece of code that you have written. There is no need to write a code. જ્યાં તમારે એક ફોર લૂપમાં 2 લાઈન લખવાની છે ત્યાં તમે 4 લાઈન લખો છો. It doesn't mean you are writing a proper way, right? So piece of code that you are maintaining, that should be in such a way where that should be reusable, that should be scalable, that is not harm on the data structure, right? So these are the points you need to take care. Some duplicate points. This is the major factor. Sonar will block your code to move in the past state. So you need to take care as well. Minor is kind of just of, that is again low probability, will impact on the developer's life. You need to take care for that. That commenting for that code should be required sometimes, or maybe the switch case. You can take that example. If a condition is just within required 2 to 3 condition, then you can use for the if else, nested if else. And if you have multiple condition, then you can go with the switch case. Info is just kind of helping where they will help to better your code health, but there are chances if you are not addressing in that proper way, that will be near time, that will be moved in the other severity. Okay, so I think we have enough with the theory. Let's move to the development processes, like what would be the demo. So how you can set up the Sonarqube. So there are some prerequisites. I will just go quickly important one. You just have to download the Java JDK version for that. Along with that, you need a Sonar Community Edition for the free way, the open source module, and Sonar Scanner for the code analyzer. Just want to inform you, like whatever the configuration that I am showing, that is right now for the Windows, that will be kind of similar for that other operating system, right? And in case if you are Flutter developer and if you want to set for Flutter, there is an additional Flutter jar file which you need to set for some extension, which we will show further. So these are the configuration. After that installation, you need to set some specific path. You need to set path variables in your environment proxy, and you can give that extension to the /bin folder where your batch file is located. The last, there is an open file, there is a wrapper.config in which you need to pass like Java server, Sonar server cube will handling with your JDK style, right? So you need to pin out that path in your wrapper config directory. So that's it. You just need to open that batch file which is located on /bin for the under Windows directory, or you can open that in CMD and you can start Sonar. There is a command, start Sonar. Okay? For the Android configuration, I am quickly go through like this slide, like how that could be configured. At the root level Gradle configuration, you just need to add the Maven repository, like how you can go. For the app Gradle, you can go like the plugin section, you can use the latest one. So latest one will give the latest checklist which is provided by the Sonar. And rest after, this is the script which Sonar need to understand for your project environment, and like what would be the process for that. So we can consider as of now we are just loading with the local host. In case if you are using any specific version at the server, you just need to pass that URL over here. The project key is your identification of your project. That will be a unique key, and that project name is kind of your any project that you are handling for that. So that will be okay if you are passing any project name. So over here, let's say project version you are passing, that is fine. You can give the specific branch target as well. If you do not want to do the scan for your production main environment, or you want to pass some specific branch, then there is some multiple attributes. I have just listed down the important ones, but you can pass that specific branch as well. So that we'll consider that only. As of now, this configuration has been loaded for this Android version, so you can check out that source directory, that is src/main/java. And in case if you want to skip some specific class in that context, you can do some exclusion property as well. And the last, the login. Earlier in the Sonar, there is a way where you need to pass your hard-coded username and password over here, but now there is a provision in Sonar for the latest version which we are using 3.2.0, in which you just need to pass the token. So pass the token, it means again in the dashboard of Sonar you can create some unique token for this project, and that will be the identification of your Sonar script. Okay, so we just need this single command gradle w space Sonarqube. By this, Sonarqube will try to hit the internal command, which is a sonar scanner, that will scan your command with the source directory. All the files will be scanned, and they will check like with them some base practices of Java or the Kotlin that you are following. Like they will identify like what are the basic points that you are missing in that point, and that will be bifurcate in multiple sections. Let's say that is a bug or vulnerability or code smell, or maybe the duplication of code. Right. At the same time, we are just configuring for the Flutter one. As I mentioned, for Flutter there is no additional need. We just need additional jar file as a plugin, and which after download we just need to move in extension folder under this Sonarqube main folder. Right. So again there is the same script, but for this we need to create a separate file, sonar.properties, which contains similar kind of script attributes. We just again identify by the project key. Only minor change will be over here, like the source directory. In the source, Flutter will be identified by the lib directory, because the lib contains all the Dart files. Right? So that's it. In the last, like we can run for the Flutter, that is the sonar desk scanner. The command is different for the Flutter and Android, so you need to check it. Okay, let's move with the demo. Okay, so basically the same configuration that I have already done for this Android project. At the root level of Gradle directory, I have settled off this Maven repository. In the build Gradle, on the top of file, there is the latest version of Sonarqube, and in the downside there is a Sonar script which I have loaded over here. This token will be unique. If you are sharing this token, that will be identified. Even if you put this token and you will hit in the GitHub or maybe some repository, they will identify like you have done the hard-coded token in your code. Right. So again, I just need to pass the command. Let's say Gradle Okay, so this is the Sonar dashboard where you can see the list of project, and here is the way where you can create your add a new project. It means the here is the place where you can give some unique ID to identify your project. So let's say if you want to create a GDG Android, so this will create this project with that display name, and that will ask for the token. So if you want to use symmetric token, if that is already with you, you can utilize that, and if you want to create a new one, you can give that argument. So as of now, I'm just giving the same name to generate a token, and this token will be used to identify my project. That's it. So there is no other need. By this token you can configure in your project. Along with that, this is the dashboard you can figure out for multiple projects. And let's say that's it. The build is successful with this mode. Let's say opening this project, and that will be indicating on that latest timestamp that we have synced version over here, and that will giving me the piece of code in the past state. So let's consider like what is the in-depth. So I'm checking under the issue category, that will be identified for multiple things as well, and inside the measurement I can do the multiple things that we can explore at the time of Flutter as well. So let's say the core point is kind of duplication. You can check the number of lines that has been written over here, everything. So at the same time, we have already set up for the Flutter, and let's say do same for Flutter. So again, this will start the syncing for your project loaded for the Flutter and fail thing. Okay, so this is in the fail state. Now need to understand like how Sonar is working with point. So you can consider there is a problem statement over here. ID is itself suggesting like there is something missing in your project which you need to take care at the time of ID itself. So this is working by the Sonar lint. So let's say consider like in which file that will be indicated in which file that you're getting the problems. So if we just quickly fix this, So let me show you like why this is happening. Under the issue that will indicating there is a 4 code smell, right? The 4 is again the same, which is highlighted by the sonar lint over here, and you can quickly fix this. In other file, model class, okay, it's showing like you're wrapping, you're missing to the safe data object. It means in your data class you are not handling the type safe version. Okay, that will be miss out, and that should be iterative. Okay, so let's you can figure out at the same time, like there is a no problem in your code. Let's hit this again to check like where is the issue. That will be so quick to understand your changes in your file, and that if you just hitting this refresh, that will be currently there is in under analyzed state, so that will be soon refresh, and that you can get highlighted like what are the changes that you have done. Okay, that's it. Meantime, we are okay. Meantime still that is in fail state. Why? Go into issue. It means code smell has been done, that we have resolved from this problem and the ID itself. Now something there is issue, and that is piece of duplication code. Okay, so we can remove this duplication. So there is a list of things that you can highlight, like in which file we have more duplication in this code. So I have searched note.dart file, which contains 63% of my code as a duplication. Okay, so how this will be highlighted, like at what percentage your code should be passed or what should be the fail. So there is a pre-default quality gets that is designed by that sonar. It's there is a duplication is more than 3%. It means they will move your project in the fail state. And let's try to move into the sonar node. Okay, so meantime let's understand like what is that issue in the duplication code, and in which file we are getting duplication, right? Which file that we have already seen, but in which section. So over here, okay, so this yellow line, it means there is a pure safe code. But once you started this gray line on the right side, it means this piece of code has been written twice in your code. So one is this section, and there is a bottom section that is written over here. So let's say under build suggestion folder. So if you just go there and figure out this code, as of now I'm trying to remove this code for the duplication only, so I can move this project into the past state. Okay, because I know, let's say helper function. So actually this function is expecting some widget in return state, right? So while even if I am passing this function, that give me two separate problems over here, like this function required widget. So that is fine, but as of now I just want to resolve the duplication issue. Okay. Okay, so as I mentioned, the two different problems that is already highlighted over here, like that function is required returns as a widget, but now we just want to clean our project state to the past state, so that's why we just checking, and we will hit the same command to reanalyze that state. Okay, so now if you can see that started that analyzing the code with your lib directories and majorly that file that we have changed only. So there is also option you can compare your last code version with your latest changes by some different category as well, like which commit that has been done by this Sonarqube and everything. Okay, so we are now good state, but as we know there is a code two different. Thank you. There is a two different still open code smell which we can figure out, and we know like we need to return is a widget, but understanding is like how we can fix that quickly because that is already highlighted in your ID itself. These are the quality profile you can figure out, right? For the different languages, you can check list of basic rules over here, like let's say for these are the static rules that already done by Pranay, like what should be the rules, so you can easily identify like for the which language that you are targeting and how you can manage that. These are the important features. You can quickly start with that Sonarqube, and I would highly recommend that if you have not started with the Sonarqube, you can start with your own configuration. You can explore more that you can implement with the code automation as well, so you do not need to write this command everywhere. If you just setting up with Jenkins even in your as open source tool, that would be easy for your project where you can integrate for the automation. So I think most of important thing that we have already done, and if you want to quickly share like what would be the key learnings that we have done over here. So you can check like what is the manual code review that I already explained. The study code analysis that has been done by the Pranay, what are the number of leaves or the number of ways you can handle that we understand, like how you can improve your code quality with avoiding checklist, right? And some hands-on demo that we have gone through for both Jetpack Compose, Flutter and Android. So these are the open source library that we have created over GitHub. You can figure out by name of myself and the Pranay. You can check on the GitHubs the sample code that is available now, and a few quick links that you can directly go through that important notes if you want to settle up with Sonarqube. So I think we have done most of things. Any question that you have, we can answer. I would like to introduce again Pranay. He can help.
So I think you can ask any question. I think we have time.
Okay. Any question? Not now. We can meet outside the lobby area and we can connect if any. Okay. Signing off me as a Chintan and my co-speaker Pranay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing your learnings with us. And from the GDG, we have some gifts for our speakers. So I'd like to give their gifts on behalf of the GDG Ahmedabad.
Thank you. Yeah. So I just wanted to share a message, right? So you might have observed like Chintan is on the stage for the very first time, right? If I'm not wrong, right? So that is what like I just wanted to pass a message. Somewhere you have to start. And this is, I mean, today is that day. Today is the only day that you start, right? So he started, he was looking for opportunity, he submitted CFPs, and we just thought about like combining their two talks. I mean, Pranay submitted proposal for Android, and Chintan wanted to talk about Sonarqube, so we clubbed those two talks and given them an opportunity, like you can definitely go on the stage, share your experience, and they both have been working on mobile development for a longer time. That's I guess 6 to 8 years if I'm not wrong, right? So just a message I wanted to pass. opportunities are there. It is up to you that you grab and you start contributing to community, right? Thank you. Thank you
Thank you.
for your amazing talk.
Thank you.